Welcome friends. So this is the second part of the video that I'm trying to prepare for creating a chatbot using AI and machine learning or primarily using NLTK, Keras and Python as a programming language. So in the first part we have already created the model and this is the code which we had used. We have already created the model and the model has been saved in the out folder here that you can see. There is one correction that needs to be highlighted in the first part where I created this training y value as the list of training but with an index 0. It should be index 1. So I have corrected this and recreated the model with the correct value, and we have the correct model now. Now the second part of it, we will be building the GUI for basically working on with or using this model and perform the actual predictions using the model. So let's get into it. So for creating the GUI, I'll create another source file. I'll call this as chat application. And let's start writing the code. So code NLTK. Here I'll again use the word net lematizer. We have to import the lematizer again. So from NLTK.stem import word net lematizer, and then we'll also import pickle. Also import numpy as np, and from Keras models import load models. This is the module to actually load the model. So now let's create a lematizer object. We have blank object, and also let's load the model. So model is equal to load model, and our model is available in the out folder here. So model location is dot slash out chatbot model.h5. Okay, so basically we are going to load the model from the model location. Okay, and load model, we will load the model. Okay, so this is done. We will also need to import JSON and random. Okay, and let's load the intents, words and classes as well that we had saved earlier. So the intents is actually the source file. So if we see here, this is the intents. So for that we'll be using the JSON loads method. We'll open the file which is located at this location. So data intents JSON, and we are going to read it. So this is for intents, and words is equal to pickle.load. Since it's a pickle file, so we'll use pickle.load and open the file from the out location, that is words.pkl. This is our file, and we'll open it in a read binary mode. Okay, and then similarly we'll also create the classes. So for that, classes now So I think this is all the initialization that we have done. Now let's start creating some functions. So the first function will be to clean up or tokenize the sentences. So clean up for it, clean up sentences, tokenize the pattern, split words into array. We'll be using the word tokenize function. We'll pass the sentence to it and we'll get the sentence words. Now we'll create stem for each word, create a short form of word basically, which is nothing but a short form of the word. So stem for each word is create short form for word. So sentence word, we'll be using a list comprehension similar to what we have been doing previously as well. So lemmatizer, we'll call the lematize function and we'll pass the word in lowercase for each of the word, for word in each sentence word. Okay, for word in sentence words, and finally we'll return sentence words. So this function is done. Next we'll have to create another function which will return bag of words array, 0 or 1 for each word in the bag that exists in the sentence. So let's call it bag of words or BOW. So definition BOW, sentence words, and show details. Let's also add a comment so that it's more clear what the function is going to do. So return bag of words array that is 0 or 1 for each word in the bag at this number. Okay, and now let's define the function. So first of all, let's tokenize the pattern using the cleanup function that we have created. This is the cleanup function, this is the return bag of words function. So let's use this cleanup function to tokenize the pattern sentence word is equal to clean up sentences, and we'll pass the sentence to it. Okay, then bag of words, matrix of n words and vocabulary matrix, that's what we'll collect. So bag of words, which is the matrix of matrix of n words, which is also the vocabulary matrix for us. So let's create that. So for that, let's initialize the bag as 0 length of words for each sentence in the sentence words. For S in sentence words, for index and word, so index and word in enumerate words. Okay, Okay, so sentence word length of words. Okay, so enumerate words. If W is equal to S, then assign one if the current word is, basically what we are doing here is if the current word is in the vocabulary position, we are assigning one. So assign one if current word is in the vocabulary position, so that will be back I is equal to 1 if show details. Okay, if show details is true, which is a optional parameter that we are adding to the function, then we'll print the value. So print found in bag and we'll pass word. Okay, so this is the print function. That's it. We'll return the bag as an array, return the bag as an NP. Okay. 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 Now let's create another function which is to basically predict the classes. So definition here is predict class. We'll pass the sentence and module to it. And also we'll filter out predictions which are below a certain threshold. So for that, REDICT are below CERT. That threshold we'll define it as 0.25. So let's define a threshold value of 0.25. Okay. Next, let's call the bag of words function. So p is equal to BOW bag of words, pass the sentence to it, words to it, and let's put show details as false for now. We don't need the details. So else is equal to model predict. Let's call the predict function and pass the p values as an array. So bag of words p array to the p value, and let's just keep the first index. Okay, so this is the result. And let's now define the actual results and collect all the results from the res value that we have created. So index comma result for index comma result in result if only if the result is greater than error threshold. Okay, now next, probability. Let's sort these values descending way on probability. For that, we'll be using a lambda function. So x, since we need descending, so we'll put reverse as true, let's also define a return list variable, which will be an empty list for each for our end result. Sorry. Intent classes are so here we are basically creating a list with each element being a dictionary containing the intents and the probability value. So probability, let's convert the probability actual value into a string. So bracket close. Okay, so then let's return this. Return list. So this is the predict function. Next, let's define a chatbot response function as well. So function we are going to call the predict class as well as the get response function. So get response have I defined the get response? Yes, I have defined the. Okay, so there is one more function actually which we need to create before we create the chatbot message. So let's create that one. So definition get response. Into this we are going to pass ints okay. So for tag value we are going to define it as ints. These are individual intents. So intent 0. So this is the tag. This is a list of intents. List of intents is equal to this one intents is equal to intents JSON get the intents alone for value. Now for each of these values in the list of intents, for I in this intents, if the tag is similar to the tag that we are looking for, that we have got as input. So if I tag is equal to the tag that we have got as input, then the result will be any of the responses at random. So which will be I responses break. So essentially, quick look, what we are trying to do here is for any of the tag, basically for any of the tag that is passed, we are trying to see the list of intents, or basically we are trying to check for which for this tag what is the pattern. So if the pattern is matching with the bag of words, we are fetching the responses and we are returning any of these responses at random. So this is what we are doing here. So now the chatbot response is actually going to use this function. So get So here we get response function, and we will pass the ints that we have calculated here, and ints are nothing but in short form for intents and intents. The global intents variable will return the resolution. Okay, so that's it. We are done with all the functions that we need. Now we need to create a GUI for which I'll be using tkinter. That is the library that will help us creating the GUI, and I'm on a Linux system, so the GUI might look a very kind of a different way in my system as compared to some other system. Maybe you are trying to use this code on a Windows machine or a Mac, so then the GUI might look a bit different, so you have to keep that in mind. So let's create a GUI using tkinter. Okay, so for that import from import star. Okay, let's create one function send message is equal to entry box. We will be defining some of these variables that I'm using, so don't get confused here. Once the entire code is written, you will get an understanding what I'm trying to do. Okay. Now if message is not equal to blank, log dot state is equal to normal log chat log dot. So this is basically input for all the input is for the GUI. So let's pass the color value. You can use, of course, colors of your choice. So let me keep it as let the font size be 12. Okay, and response will be the chatbot response to the message that we are passing. So similar to what we had done earlier, we will use the same thing and add it to the chat log. So it is the bot who is responding now. So we'll say bot is the bot's response, and we'll also do a double new line after this as well. Okay, so then config state, let's redefine the config state as disabled, and then while you So this is the send function. Now let's define all these variables that are needed for the tinker to work. So base is equal to tk, the constructor base dot title, we can say hello, or we can say chatbot. Chatbot application base, we can pass the base geometry to be 400 cross 500, and we can create a resizable window. So base resizable width and height both will pass as false. Now let's create the actual chat window. Create window using the dimensions. So chat. Now this is the chat log that we have been using. So text, it is going to be a text base dd equal to 0. Okay, and bg background, we'll keep it as white, keep things simple, not white, and has to be equal to, so bg is white, height is equal to 8, width is 50, and font is Arial. Let's put the state as disabled. One thing to keep in mind is you have to have some idea of the GUI and how to write the code for it. I will not be able to cover this in this video. Even for me also, I actually am using this code as is because I don't have any expertise with GUI development. So I'm just trying to use a standard approach which I was able to identify how to do it. So I'm just kind of reusing that code. I'm not doing it in a sense of being a front-end developer or a UI developer of that sort. So let's add a scroll bar to the chat box. How to do that? Yes. Scroll bar we will define from scroll bar. We will pass the base. Font is equal to, let's copy the font details to keep it similar. So font will use Verdana, and this time let's also do a bold and text. We will, this is for the button, so we'll do a text of send width is equal to 12, height is, let's give it 5, okay, scroll bar, okay, so actually this is the scroll bar, right? So command, no, not, okay, this code is not for the scroll bar. Take it the wrong way. Command is equal to chat log dot 5u. This is how you have to do it, and cursor is equal to heart. this is all about the scroll bar, chat log, scroll command is equal to scroll bar dot set. Scroll bar set. Now, so this is for binding the scroll bar. Now let's create a button and send the message. For that, send button expert button, and here we will pass space font. Okay, font is Verona, text is send, width is 12, height is 5, PD is 0, BG the color, so let's use this color 7 active background. So for the active background, the color that we are going to use is this, and foreground will keep it as white. So and the command there is send. This is the button. Now let's create the box where we'll be entering the message. So let's call it entry box. Entry box is equal to text base, and BD is equal to 0, BG is equal to white. Okay, width, let's keep it as 29, height, let's keep it as 5. Font, let's keep it as Arial. Okay, I think we have developed all the components. Okay, components. Let's place all the components on the screen at specific locations. For that, we'll have to pass the XY coordinates. So place all the screen. For that, scroll bar we will place at, let's say, x coordinate of 376, y coordinate of 6, height of 386. So this is the scroll bar. What about the chat log? So for chat log we will place at x is equal to 6, y is equal to 6, height is equal to 386, and width is equal to 370, and then next will be entry box. Let's create the location for entry box. Place x is 128, y is 401, height is 90, and width is 265. Finally, the send button. For that, we use scroll bar type. So height is 90, width is 401. Sorry, y coordinate is 401, x coordinate is 6, we have the scroll bar, we have the chat log, we have the entry box, we have the send button, 376x, 386, 6. Okay, this looks good. So let's call the main loop function. So okay, so we are done with this code. Let's try to execute this now. So for that I will have to call this Python 3 application. Let's call this, and if everything goes well we should see the GUI pop up. Okay, it looks good. Now let's try to ask some questions from based on this. So let's call hi here. We should get a response from the bot. Okay, so there is an error. Let's try to check this. What is the error? So add bot resolution. This is line number 98. Okay. The send function. Let's see what's the error. The resolution chatbot response. We pass the message chat log. We insert end bot response and /n. Okay, so it's saying chat log insert response can only concatenate string, not none type to string. Okay, so it's saying the response is none. Why is that? So chatbot. Okay, and okay, I think I know why is that, because we haven't returned a response here. So that is the problem. This looks good now. Let's save this, close the UI window that we have got, make loop, and then try to run it again. Okay, so should get a pop-up. Hi there. Click on send. Now if you see, we are getting a response from the bot, and if you see here, when I'm typing hi there, I'm getting one of the random responses to check if this is working. Let's try it one more time. Hi there. If you see here, this time it sent a different response, which is this one. Thanks for asking. Let's ask another thing, how can you help? So let's say how or what can you do? So now based on this what can you do option, it is returning one of the responses, which is not this one, but this one. If you see, offering support for adverse drug reaction, blood pressure, hospitals, pharmacies, etc. So based on the question that we ask, and of course one key thing to understand, I don't need to ask the question in the exact parameters that are mentioned or exact patterns that are mentioned here. I can simply ask, how can you help me? Okay, it's kind of different. It's not how you could help me. So let's see what it says. It is still returning the same response. Can you help me? Let's ask a question like this. Yeah, and it is responding with another random response from the same tag or same option, which is I can guide you through the adverse drug, which is the first one. So you can see here the pattern although makes a difference, but it's the stem or the lemmatized keywords from the patterns that it is recognizing. It is not recognizing the exact sentence. Okay, so that's the key thing to understand. And there are like other things that we can ask. For example, blood. If I ask about details about blood pressure, it says you have to navigate to the blood pressure module, as you can see here, according to what keywords I have passed. And again, if you see, I'm not asking precisely the same pattern or of the question, I'm asking something else. Similarly, we can ask for adverse drugs. Can you tell me about adverse drugs? And of course, it is basically ignoring. Now if you see, for my question, it is pointing me that you should navigate to the adverse drug reaction module. Okay, so it is working as expected. And there are far more, like we can add more complexity to it. In a sense, we can add some sort of context where we can, based on the input or the keyword that we are passing. For example, let's say for this pharmacy search, we can have a complexity where we want the bot to find a particular pharmacy, and the bot will ask for a pharmacy name, and based on that we can have another kind of pattern where we can search the pharmacy name using the pattern and then display that information. But I haven't implemented it as of now, so there is something more on top of this chatbot that we can do. So that's it for this video. With the two videos that I have completed, it completes the basic chatbot application series. And of course, if I do any other kind of enhancement to this application, probably I'll try to create another video out of it. But I hope whatever we have covered, it will be useful for you guys, and you would have got an idea how to get started with building a very basic chatbot. So if you like these videos, kindly consider subscribing and share these videos with your friends and family. And I will be back with similar kind of videos very soon. Thanks a lot for watching this, and you have a great day. Thank you.